about human history is a lie? What if mankind wasn't created by chance, but by an ancient alien race? And even worse, what if the same creators decided humanity no longer deserved to exist? This isn't just another space mission. It's the search for the biggest secret in human history. The story begins on a lonely world, long before human civilization ever existed. A giant humanoid being stands beside a massive waterfall. This mysterious race is far more advanced than anything we could imagine. Without hesitation, the being drinks a strange black liquid. Within seconds, his body begins to break apart. Every cell tears itself apart until he collapses into the water. His DNA slowly spreads across the planet, becoming part of nature itself. That single sacrifice appears to spark the beginning of life. If this is true, then the first chapter of humanity didn't begin on Earth. It began with someone else. Thousands of years later, in the year 2089, archaeologists uncover a discovery that changes everything. Inside an ancient cave on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, they find a prehistoric mural nearly 35,000 years old. The painting shows a giant figure pointing toward a distant group of stars. At first, it seems like a simple drawing. Then researchers make an unbelievable discovery. The exact same star map appears in ancient civilizations all over the world. Different cultures, different continents, different time periods. Yet somehow, they all point to the same place. 5 years later, human technology has finally reached the point where interstellar travel is possible. A massive exploration vessel called Prometheus is launched toward the mysterious star system. 17 of the world's brightest scientists volunteer for the mission. Their goal isn't finding treasure. It isn't discovering new planets. They're searching for the beings they believe created mankind. The journey takes more than 2 years. During that time, every crew member remains in cryosleep, while the ship is quietly maintained by an android named David. Unlike the others, David never sleeps. He spends every day studying human behavior, learning languages, watching old movies, and waiting for the moment everyone wakes up. There is something unsettling about him. He follows every order perfectly. But behind those calm eyes, it feels like he's always thinking several steps ahead. After 2 years and 4 months, Prometheus finally reaches its destination. David wakes the crew. As expected, everyone struggles after such a long sleep. Their bodies are weak, their muscles barely respond, and even standing feels difficult. Once they've recovered, the entire crew gathers for their first official briefing. That's when they finally learn why they're really here. Their mission was funded by Peter Weyland, the dying billionaire behind the Weyland Corporation. He believes humanity didn't evolve by accident. He believes someone engineered us. Archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway spent years collecting evidence from ancient civilizations across Earth. Every clue led to the same star system, and now they've finally arrived. Shaw believes the mysterious giants are humanity's creators. She calls them engineers. But not everyone shares her excitement. After the meeting, Meredith Vickers privately pulls Shaw and Charlie aside. Her warning is simple. If you actually find the engineers, do not speak to them. Contact me first. The request makes no sense. After traveling across the galaxy to meet humanity's creators, why would anyone forbid first contact? No one has the answer. For now, all they can do is continue the mission. Soon, Prometheus descends through the thick clouds of LV-223. The planet appears completely lifeless. No cities, no signs of civilization, nothing. Then the scanners detect something impossible. Perfectly straight structures stretching across the landscape. Nature doesn't build straight lines. Someone built them. And hidden beneath those ancient ruins, humanity's greatest discovery was waiting. They had finally found proof that they were never alone. What they didn't know was that this discovery would soon become their worst nightmare. The moment the team steps inside the massive structure, the atmosphere changes. The silence feels unnatural. Every footstep echoes through the endless corridors, making the place feel less like an abandoned ruin and more like something that has been waiting for them. The walls are covered with strange symbols, unlike anything found on Earth. This wasn't just ancient architecture. Someone had built this place with technology far beyond human understanding. To avoid getting lost, the team's geologist releases several floating mapping drones. The small machines quickly spread throughout the tunnels, scanning every hallway and chamber before sending a complete three-dimensional map back to the Prometheus. For the first time, they finally know what lies beneath the surface. As they move deeper inside, another surprise changes everything. The air is breathable. After running multiple tests, they realize the oxygen levels are almost identical to Earth's. One by one, the crew removes their helmets. Finding breathable air on an alien world should have been impossible. Instead, it raises an even bigger question. Who prepared this place, and for whom? But the deeper they travel, the stranger everything becomes. The silence isn't peaceful anymore. It feels like someone is watching them. Then David notices something unusual carved into one of the walls. Curious, he gently touches the strange symbols. Suddenly, the entire chamber lights up. A holographic recording appears out of nowhere. Everyone freezes. Several gigantic humanoids are running through the corridor in complete panic. Their expressions aren't filled with anger. They're terrified. Whatever chased them was powerful enough to frighten an entire civilization. realization. The crew follows the hologram through the ancient hallway until it suddenly ends beside an enormous stone doorway. Lying beneath it is the body of one of the giants. His head has been cleanly severed by the closing door. For a few moments, nobody says a word. This single body changes human history forever. Humanity is no longer alone in the universe. The engineers were real. The team carefully recovers the body, hoping it will finally answer the questions that have haunted mankind for thousands of years. But while everyone focuses on the discovery, David quietly notices something else. Without telling anyone, he climbs toward the massive stone door and manages to activate the ancient mechanism. The entrance slowly opens. Beyond it stands an enormous stone face, unlike anything they've ever seen. Surrounding it are hundreds of identical black containers, arranged with perfect precision. The room feels less like a temple and more like a vault. Almost immediately, something begins to change. A dark liquid slowly starts leaking from several of the containers. David watches it carefully. It doesn't behave like normal fluid. It almost seems alive. At the same time, Elizabeth notices something disturbing. The murals on the ceiling don't celebrate creation. They depict a horrifying creature, unlike any living animal. The excitement on her face disappears instantly. Something about this place is terribly wrong. She tells everyone they need to leave immediately. Nobody argues. Even the most optimistic scientists can now feel that this place was never meant to be explored. But while the crew rushes back toward the exit, no one notices the tiny worm-like creatures crawling across the floor. Moments earlier, they had touched the leaking black substance, and they were already beginning to change. Before anyone can escape, Prometheus receives an emergency weather alert. A massive storm is racing toward the structure. Winds are approaching deadly speeds. The captain orders everyone to return immediately. Most of the team obeys, but some scientists refuse to leave without collecting samples. In the middle of the confusion, David secretly slips one of the mysterious black containers into his bag. No one sees him do it. No one questions why he wants it. That single decision will doom almost everyone on the mission. Outside, the storm grows stronger every minute. Visibility disappears. In the chaos, two crew members lose their way inside the labyrinth. The others are forced to leave without them. They promise they'll come back as soon as the storm passes. What they don't realize is that those two scientists are no longer alone. Something else is moving through the darkness, and it's getting closer. While the storm rages outside, the nightmare quietly begins inside the ruins. Back aboard the Prometheus, the crew carefully examines the severed engineer's head. Once they remove its helmet, everyone is stunned. It looks almost human. The facial features, the bone structure, even the skin are remarkably similar. The only obvious difference is its massive size. Hoping to recover valuable information, the scientists attempt to stimulate the brain using controlled electrical pulses. At first, nothing happens. Then, without warning, the engineer's eyes slowly open. The room falls completely silent. For one incredible moment, it seems impossible has become reality. An engineer is alive, but something is terribly wrong. Its face begins to twitch violently. Dark fluid leaks from its eyes and mouth as pressure rapidly builds inside its skull. Before anyone can stop the experiment, the head explodes inside the containment chamber. Although the experiment ends in disaster, the DNA analysis reveals something even more shocking. The engineer's genetic code is almost identical to human DNA. That discovery changes everything. Humans weren't simply similar to the engineers. They were connected. Meanwhile, David has no interest in the scientific celebration. Alone inside his laboratory, he opens one of the mysterious black containers he secretly brought back. Inside are several small glass vials surrounded by a strange organic substance. He carefully breaks one open. A thick black liquid slowly drips onto his fingertip. Instead of treating it like a dangerous biohazard, David watches it with quiet fascination. Then, he makes a decision that will change the fate of the entire mission. Carrying a bottle of alcohol, he walks over to Charlie Holloway. The two begin an ordinary conversation. Charlie has no reason to suspect anything. As David pours him a drink, he casually dips his contaminated finger into Charlie's glass. The black substance disappears into the liquid. Charlie smiles, raises the glass, and drinks every last drop. David simply watches. His expression never changes. Later that night, Charlie and Elizabeth Shaw talk about everything they've discovered. Finding proof that humanity may have been created by another species should have answered their biggest question. Instead, it creates an even bigger one. If the engineers created humans, who created the engineers? Charlie laughs and jokes that creating life can't be that difficult. The comment accidentally hurts Elizabeth, who knows she can never have children. Realizing his mistake, Charlie apologizes. The two share a quiet moment together. Neither of them realizes the infection has already begun spreading through Charlie's body, but the real horror is unfolding somewhere else. Still trapped inside the ancient structure, the two missing crew members desperately search for an exit. Instead, they discover a chamber filled with hundreds of engineer corpses. The bodies are piled together near a sealed doorway. Many appear to have burst open from the inside. Whatever killed them didn't attack from the outside. It came from within. Terrified, the The two men run. In their panic, they unknowingly return to the room filled with the black containers. By now, the dark liquid has completely spread across the floor. One of the scientists suddenly notices movement beneath the surface. Something is swimming inside it. A long, pale creature slowly rises from the black fluid. It resembles a snake, but something about it feels horribly unnatural. Instead of backing away, the biologist becomes fascinated. Sometimes curiosity can be more dangerous than fear. He slowly reaches out to touch it. The creature instantly spreads its hood and hisses. Every warning sign is there. Still, he moves closer. In the next second, the creature launches forward with incredible speed. It wraps around his arm and crushes it with terrifying strength. The bone snaps instantly. His partner desperately swings a knife, slicing the creature in half. For a split second, it looks like they've won. Then the creature's blood splashes across the scientist's helmet. The liquid burns straight through the visor like acid. Even worse, the severed creature doesn't die. It continues moving. It forces its way through the damaged helmet and disappears into the man's mouth. Within seconds, both scientists have been infected and back on the Prometheus. No one has any idea that the first victims have already fallen. The mission to discover humanity's creators has officially become a fight for survival. Morning arrives, but nothing feels normal anymore. Charlie wakes up exhausted. His body feels weak, his breathing is heavier, and something deep inside him feels wrong. He stumbles toward a mirror, hoping it's just fatigue from the previous day's expedition. Instead, he sees something that freezes him in place. His eyes are bloodshot. Tiny dark veins spread beneath the surface, and for just a split second, it almost looks like something is moving inside his pupil. He blinks. The movement is gone. He convinces himself he's imagining it, but his body knows the truth long before his mind does. At the same time, the missing crew members still haven't checked in. Radio silence. With no other choice, a rescue team heads back into the ancient structure. Charlie insists on joining them. He doesn't tell anyone what he saw, not because he isn't worried, because he still believes he can control it. Meanwhile, David quietly separates from the group once again. He isn't looking for survivors. He's searching for answers. Following another passage deep beneath the structure, he discovers a gigantic sealed chamber, unlike anything they've seen before. The doors slowly open. Inside, thousands of identical black urns stretch across the enormous room. It isn't a storage facility. It's an arsenal. Every container holds the same mysterious black substance. The realization is terrifying. Whatever this liquid is, the engineers manufactured it on a massive scale. David continues deeper until he reaches an enormous control room. Ancient consoles suddenly come to life as he touches them. Another holographic recording begins to play. This time, the final moments before the disaster unfold. An engineer sits inside the pilot's chair, preparing the massive spacecraft for launch. A star map appears above the controls. The destination, Earth. But before the launch can begin, chaos erupts. The recording ends abruptly. David slowly looks around the room. The truth finally becomes clear. This was never just a building. It was an enormous spacecraft buried beneath the surface. And these biological weapons were never meant to stay here forever. They were meant to be delivered somewhere. Then David notices one last chamber. A single cryosleep pod remains sealed. Curious, he leans closer. At first, nothing. Then, a faint heartbeat. One engineer is still alive. A small smile appears on David's face. After 2,000 years, humanity is finally about to meet its creator. Elsewhere, the rescue team reaches the chamber where the missing scientists were last seen. Only one body remains. The other scientist has completely vanished. Before anyone can investigate further, something suddenly bursts out of the dead man's mouth. A horrifying eel-like creature shoots across the floor and disappears into the darkness before anyone can react. The team raises their weapons, but it's already gone. Then Charlie collapses. He drops to one knee, gasping for air. His skin grows pale. Dark veins spread rapidly across his face. Elizabeth rushes to help him. She immediately realizes this isn't an ordinary illness. Something inside Charlie is changing him from the inside out. The rescue mission is over. Getting him back to the Prometheus becomes the only priority. The team races toward the surface as fast as they can, but hidden inside those ancient tunnels, something else has already awakened, and it isn't finished hunting. By the time the rescue team reaches the Prometheus, Charlie can barely stand. His skin is turning darker by the minute. His breathing is shallow. Every second, whatever is inside him grows stronger. The moment Meredith Vickers sees his condition, she seals the entrance. No one comes aboard. Her voice is cold, but her decision is logical. If the infection spreads inside the ship, everyone dies. Charlie doesn't argue. Deep down, he already knows the truth. There is no cure. He turns toward Elizabeth one last time. Neither of them needs to say a word. Everything they wanted to discover, everything they sacrificed to find, has already taken him. With tears in her eyes, Elizabeth begs for another solution, but there isn't one. Charlie slowly walks away from the ship. Vickers raises her flamethrower. For a brief moment, the world goes completely silent. Then flames erupt across Charlie's body. He never screams. He simply disappears into the fire. Elizabeth watches helplessly as the man she loves burns to death only a few feet away. The shock is too much. She collapses. When she finally wakes up, the nightmare somehow becomes even worse. David calmly informs her that she's pregnant. Not only pregnant, according to the medical scans, the fetus has already developed, as if it were nearly 3 months old. Elizabeth stares at him in disbelief. That is impossible. Only hours earlier, she wasn't pregnant at all. Then the horrifying realization hits her. Whatever is growing inside her isn't human. Panicked, she demands immediate surgery. But David refuses. To him, the creature isn't a tragedy. It's a priceless scientific discovery. He quietly prepares a sedative, planning to place Elizabeth into cryo-sleep and transport her back to Earth. Elizabeth notices what he's doing. Instead of fighting immediately, she pretends to lose consciousness. As David and another crew member move closer, she suddenly attacks. Catching them completely off guard, she knocks them aside and escapes. Despite the fresh surgical pain tearing through her body, she forces herself toward Vickers' private medical suite. Inside is an advanced automated surgical pod. It's designed to perform almost any operation. Elizabeth quickly programs the machine for an emergency abdominal extraction. The pod closes around her. Seconds later, the robotic arms begin cutting. The pain is unbearable. She can feel something alive moving violently inside her body. Then, the machine finally removes it. Lying inside the surgical chamber is a pale creature with long tentacles. It resembles nothing human. Even moments after birth, it's already alive, already growing. Elizabeth quickly seals it inside the medical pod before stumbling out of the room. She believes she has escaped the nightmare. She couldn't be more wrong. Meanwhile, chaos erupts aboard the Prometheus. Motion sensors detect someone approaching the ship. One of the missing scientists has returned. At first glance, he looks human. But the closer he gets, the more obvious the transformation becomes. His skin is almost black. His movements are unnatural. His eyes are completely empty. A crew member cautiously approaches him. Without warning, the infected man attacks with unbelievable strength. The first victim dies instantly. Panic spreads across the ship. Bullets barely slow the creature down. Even flames fail to stop it. It keeps fighting as though it no longer feels pain. Finally, one of the crew members drives a heavy exploration vehicle straight into him. The impact crushes his body beneath the wheels. Seconds later, the captain finishes the job with a wall of fire. This time, the creature finally stops moving. The crew stands in stunned silence. Whatever infected him had turned a human being into something completely different. And far below the surface, the last surviving engineer was still waiting to wake up. Elizabeth can barely stay on her feet. Every movement sends pain through her body, but stopping isn't an option anymore. She has survived the infection. She has survived the surgery. Now, she needs answers. As she stumbles through the ship, a door suddenly slides open. Standing inside is Peter Wayland. The billionaire who supposedly died years ago has been alive the entire time. His death was nothing more than a lie. He secretly traveled aboard the Prometheus, hiding in cryosleep while everyone believed this mission was about humanity's origins. It never was. For Wayland, this expedition had only one purpose: to cheat death. David then reveals the biggest discovery yet. One of the engineers is still alive. The moment Wayland hears those words, hope returns to his eyes. He believes his creator can give him what no human ever could: more time, maybe even immortality. Elizabeth immediately tries to stop him. She reminds everyone of what they've already witnessed: a biological weapon, dead engineers, an entire civilization wiped out. Nothing about this planet suggests its creators are peaceful, but Wayland refuses to listen. He has spent his entire life building an empire. Now, standing at the edge of death, he isn't about to turn back. The expedition moves toward the buried spacecraft one final time. Meanwhile, Captain Janek studies the underground scans more carefully. The truth becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't an archaeological site. It's a military installation. The thousands of black urns stored beneath the surface aren't religious artifacts. They're biological weapons. Weapons powerful enough to erase an entire planet. Whatever happened here prevented those weapons from ever leaving. For now, deep inside the alien spacecraft, David activates the final cryosleep chamber. The pod slowly opens. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, an engineer opens his eyes. He slowly rises from the chamber, confused, silent, studying the humans standing before him. Wayland can barely contain himself. He orders David to speak. Using the ancient engineer language he secretly taught himself during the voyage, David asks a simple question: can you save this man's life? The engineer quietly looks at the old billionaire. Then he turns toward David. For one brief moment, everything seems peaceful. The engineer gently places a hand on David's head. It almost feels compassionate. Then everything changes. Without warning, the engineer violently tears David's head from his body. The android crashes to the floor. Everyone freezes. The security team immediately opens fire. The bullets do almost nothing. The engineer moves with overwhelming speed. Within seconds, every guard is dead. Wayland never even gets the chance to beg for his life. The being he believed would save him kills him without hesitation. Elizabeth is the only one who manages to escape. But the engineer doesn't chase her. He has something far more important to do. He walks directly to the pilot's chair. Ancient systems roar back to life. A glowing star map fills the room. The destination is already programmed: Earth. The horrifying truth finally becomes clear. The engineers didn't invite humanity here. They were preparing to wipe humanity out. And now, the last surviving engineer is about to finish the mission his civilization never completed. Unless someone stops him, billions of people will never know what destroyed them. The engineer's ship begins to power up. Ancient engines shake the entire underground chamber as massive pieces of the structure slowly rise toward the surface. Within minutes, the spacecraft will be in orbit, and once it reaches space, its destination destination is Earth. Elizabeth immediately contacts Captain Janek over the radio. Her voice is filled with panic. "You have to stop that ship. If it leaves this planet, everyone on Earth dies." Janek looks through the cockpit window. He knows exactly what that means. The Prometheus isn't a warship. It has no missiles, no heavy weapons, no way to destroy something that large. For a few silent seconds, no one speaks. Then Janek makes his decision. If we can't shoot it down, we'll ram it. His two crew members look at each other. Not one of them argues. They all understand what this mission will cost. Before carrying out the plan, Janek launches Vickers' emergency escape module onto the surface. Anyone who wants to survive still has one final chance. Vickers doesn't hesitate. She boards the escape pod without looking back. The captain and the rest of his crew remain on the bridge. No dramatic speeches, no false hope, just quiet acceptance. They know they're about to sacrifice themselves for billions of strangers they'll never meet. The engines roar to full power. Prometheus accelerates straight toward the engineer's rising ship. The distance closes in seconds. Then, impact. The collision tears through both spacecraft with unbelievable force. The engineer's ship loses control and crashes back toward the planet. Janek's sacrifice works. Earth has been saved. But for Elizabeth, the danger is far from over. The enormous alien ship begins rolling across the landscape like a collapsing mountain. Elizabeth and Vickers run as fast as they can. The shadow above them keeps getting larger. Vickers panics. She keeps running in a straight line. Elizabeth suddenly changes direction. One decision saves her life. The massive ship crushes Vickers beneath its unimaginable weight. She dies instantly. Elizabeth barely escapes by diving behind a large rock. Bruised, exhausted, and almost out of oxygen, she drags herself toward the nearby escape module. Inside, she hopes she'll finally be safe. Instead, she hears something moving. A wet, heavy sound echoes through the medical room. Slowly, she opens the door. The creature removed during her surgery is still alive, but it isn't a baby anymore. In only a few hours, it has grown into a gigantic tentacled monster that fills almost the entire chamber. Elizabeth steps backward in horror. Before she can react, the escape pod shakes violently. The engineer survived the crash. He tears open the entrance and storms inside. Elizabeth has nowhere left to run. The engineer grabs her and begins dragging her toward him. In one desperate move, she slams the medical chamber controls. The containment door flies open. The enormous creature explodes out of the room. Its massive tentacles wrap around the engineer with incredible force. The powerful creator suddenly becomes the victim. He struggles with everything he has, but he can't break free. The monster tightens its grip until the engineer finally dies. Elizabeth escapes from the pod, collapsing onto the cold ground outside. She is the only human left alive, or so she thinks. A familiar voice suddenly speaks through a nearby communicator. It's David. His body was destroyed, but his head is still fully functional. He tells Elizabeth there are more engineer ships hidden beneath the planet. More importantly, he now knows how to fly them. David suggests returning to Earth. Elizabeth refuses. She doesn't want to go home without the truth. She wants to find the engineer's homeworld. She wants one final answer. Why create humanity? Only to decide it deserved extinction? Together, the last surviving human and the broken android leave the planet aboard another engineer spacecraft. But one final horror is still waiting. Back inside the escape pod, the dead engineer's body suddenly twitches. Its chest violently tears open. A terrifying new creature forces its way into the world, neither fully engineered nor anything humanity has ever seen before. It is the first of a new nightmare, a creature that will one day evolve into one of the deadliest predators in the universe, and somewhere among the stars. Elizabeth Shaw is flying toward the people who created mankind, completely unaware that an even darker chapter is only just beginning. To be continued in Alien Covenant.